baby, let me know. Is this real love?
So on my recent Premise EP, I had a lot of melodic and harmonious tracks where it was really straightforward how to arrange them because everything served a very obvious function in the arrangement, but I wanted to include at least one track that was a bit more abstract and mysterious and irrational in a sense, and that is this tune called Real Love. And I thought it's maybe interesting to show you the project because there are some interesting ideas when it comes to using these more abstract and irrational sounds, where it's maybe not immediately obvious how to use them in an arrangement, where you have to trust more on your ear and your intuition rather than music theory or convention. So maybe let's first have a little look at the basic themes here. The main theme is this weird, wobbling, abstract, out of tune synth chord. Which is just being filtered throughout the arrangement. 2 layers of it. There's also a higher layer where it's just pitched up by 12 semitones with a lot of warping artifacts. And then I also did some automations here on the pitch. Here the transposition. I think here it goes down by 5 semitones and then in the end it slowly, in a gradual movement, goes up by 2 semitones. Yeah. Then the other important thing is the rhythm with all of these complex, abstract, tiny little details, and I think you're going to appreciate this a lot more through headphones. Yeah, so I'm going to go into these in a bit. All of these little textures and percussions. And then, yeah, the moment that I knew I had a great tune was when I combined it with this vocal sample here.
Oh, can we pretend? Oh, baby, let me know. Is this real love?
Yeah, and then it goes on with some more vocal chops here.
Oh, baby. Oh, can we pretend? Oh, baby, let me know.
Yeah. So maybe let's go a bit into the details now. I already showed you the pad sound, and how I did this is I first recorded a fairly straightforward long chord, just looped infinitely, and then I sent it through a tape delay. I think it was the Erica Zen delay, put it to 100% wet, and then started playing around very carefully with the delay time and the feedback of the delay. And because it behaves like a tape delay, it also doesn't just change the timing but also the pitch, and this is where this inconsistent pitch is coming from, how it's always a bit unstable, giving this uneasy kind of vibe. But now let's get here into the details, and as I said, I also recommend headphones if you want to even hear what I'm doing here. Okay, we're starting out with this fairly straightforward kick drums, just a 909 I think. And it has this little bit crush to give this high frequency content for it to cut through in the mix, and also have this melodic component almost. Yeah, what I did here a lot is I looked for tiny little opportunities to introduce harmony in an abstract way. Yeah, so stuff like bit crusher, and then I tune the bit crusher by ear until I think it sounds right. And I did this on all of these tiny little abstract things. And I'm pretty sure most of them are not going to land on a traditional note from 12-tone equal temperament. Here I have this little transient that I designed, just a sine wave with a very short pitch envelope to create this little zap sound with, I think by just adjusting a preset here in Reactor, the little drum synth by Native Instruments, TRK01 or something. Yeah, this just helps the kick to have this additional presence in the mix, especially with all of these tiny little details, and also just makes it sound a bit more futuristic, I think. Then here some toms. I think this must be 606 or 909 or something, with a lot of distortion. I think I sent it through the tape as well and resampled it a bunch of times. And this works almost like the bass line here in this track, effectively. Yeah, so these two sounds together are like the heartbeat. Then one of my favorite sounds here, which adds a lot of character, and it's also one of these opportunities I took to introduce some sort of abstract harmony here. Yeah, this is just a hi-hat and a clap, I think, from the Clockworker Beats. And I added a very short delay with a bit of feedback to introduce this metallic aesthetic into it. And then I resampled it, and what I did is I took every single fragment and gave it its own distinct pitch, just pitching it up a bit by a few cents. Yeah? So I would take it like this, chop it up, turn off the warp, and here using the send, I would give it its own little tiny alteration in pitch. And if you listen very closely, it now sounds almost like there's a little abstract metallic sort of melody going on, but it's very subtle. And hadn't I done this, the sound wouldn't sound nearly as interesting, even if you don't notice it. It would just sound so much more boring if I didn't do this. Then we're starting out with the noise here. This must be some little abstract sound from the Buchla, I think. And I just arranged it in such a way that it grooves like an offbeat hi-hat. It already implies the offbeat hi-hat. And I think the same goes for this next piece of noise. Yeah, which I think used to be vinyl noise, but it has a lot of warping artifacts in it. Yeah, giving this even more abstract, unnatural kind of vibe. And then here a bit more traditional vinyl noise, but also with some weird artifacts in it. And this works sort of like, yeah, I think this adds a lot to the groove, that the second noise is not going throughout the entire loop, but actually just has this pushing and pulling kind of energy in the context. Yeah, it feels like a movement that introduces other sounds. So there's this interesting interplay here with this noise. And then here 3 additional Foley sounds. Oh no, two Foley sounds and another zap for some additional contrast. For example, this Foley sound here has a bit of delay and it's moving throughout the stereo space, yeah, giving us an idea of space here. And the way I worked here is none of these sounds really stand out a lot. So I had to find a lot of creative solutions to create space, like a 3-dimensionality, and to have tiny variation all the time, and yeah, to arrange this into something interesting. Then let's move on to the vocals. Here we first have this main rhythmic vocal theme, consisting of these 2 sounds. First is a bit more sustained, but very quiet. And the second one is more percussive, working almost like a percussion basically. And then sometimes they are playing together, sometimes there's an interplay, like a question and answer. Yeah, here I have this little automation of the volume, mimicking a long attack time on an envelope, so it almost introduces the other sound. It makes it feel like they're connected. Then this is also one of my favorites here, this vocal 4, which just has this super long tape delay. I'm using the Replica XT by Native Instruments, and it just has this insanely long feedback, And I'm doing a lot of automations throughout the arrangement to control exactly how it's going to behave. And this is also one of the main things that gave me a lot of creative flexibility to get from one place to another in the arrangement. Yeah, and stuff I would modulate here are like the timing, the decay, the detuning, and of course the stereo behavior, how the timing differs from left to right. I think here I also resampled it to get some more control. Here suddenly it changes pitch in accordance with the pad, I think. Let's listen to this part together with the chord. Yeah, the chord changes by 5 semitones, and I think the vocal also. And this is stuff you can only do in this way if you resample it, because suddenly you can approach the sound in a different way than where it's just still coming from the plugin. And then the moment where I knew I had a tune was pretty much when I started adding this main vocal here.
Is this real love? Oh, baby. Oh, can we pretend? Oh, baby, let me know.
Yeah, and it's a female vocal sample, but it's pitched down by about half an octave. I think, yeah, 5 semitones, so not quite. This makes it sound more masculine, even though it's a female vocal. But it doesn't just sound like a natural masculine sound, it sounds somehow otherworldly, and it's an aesthetic I always really like, if you don't overdo it. Where to pitch down a couple more semitones it would just sound cliche. But I feel like often there's a range where it just makes it sound like a, this very otherworldly, unnatural timbre.
Oh, baby, let me know.
And here it's all coming together in this little arrangement move.
Is this real love?
Yeah, so everything working together here. All of these Foley sounds create this little build up. Also, actually below the synths down here, I have another group also just consisting of 7 different Foley sounds that are just there to create these little build-ups and rises in energy. At first you don't even notice the noise, and then it starts getting louder, and then other Foley sounds appear, and bam, a little zap sound to cut it all off. And these little moments happen in various variations throughout the entire arrangement. And then everything coming together works really nicely, even though all the individual parts
Is this real love?
all just do a very tiny contribution. And this way I'm able to inject some liveliness and movement into these very abstract sounds. And then I think lastly there's just this additional little synth here, which is also super detuned, made in Super 8. Has a lot of drift here, which basically just detunes the oscillators and makes them inconsistent. And these were the only 2 notes that I found that somehow had an interesting emotional effect together with these detuned pad sounds. Alright, that's it for my track Real Love, which is out now as part of my Premise EP. And if you have any questions, as usual, hit me up and I will try and get back to you. Apart from that, thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Peace out.